Cyberpunk 2077. Who knew that this game was going to turn out to be one of the most controversial video games ever? At this rate, nearly everyone has their own opinion on the game, and most of those opinions are usually divided into two sides. People who think Cyberpunk is the worst game ever made, and people who think Cyberpunk is the best game ever made. Me, personally, I am within the side of those who think Cyberpunk is one of the greatest video games of all time, and trust me, I have my reasons. For those who are on the side of thinking the game is the worst game ever made, I don't blame you at all. There's multiple reasons why so many could dislike this game so much, and I think the first reason is the amount of time it took to make this game. The first time Cyberpunk 2077 ever appeared was on October 9th, 2012, which was the first video on the Cyberpunk 2077 YouTube channel. This video wasn't even a trailer, it was a title reveal. The first trailer to ever be revealed for the game was released a little under 3 months later on January 10th, 2013. This was the game's first trailer, and this teaser trailer is pretty much what created all the hype for the game. But after this teaser trailer, no new information about Cyberpunk was released for over 6 years. Nothing was posted on the Cyberpunk YouTube channel, and CD Projekt Red, the developers, basically never mentioned the game again. The only reason I could find for this 6-year-long silence was that at the time, CD Projekt Red was in the middle of working on The Witcher 3, and unlike other game developing companies such as Rockstar Games and Activision, CD Projekt Red is a very small company compared to them, so it's pretty difficult for CDPR to work on multiple games at once. So because of this, CDPR shifted their entire focus on The Witcher 3 and left Cyberpunk in the dust. Then, finally, on August 27, 2018, CD Projekt Red released a 48-minute gameplay reveal of Cyberpunk 2077. And honestly, even though this was released over 2 years before the actual release of the game, so yeah, Cyberpunk was finally released over 8 years after its first appearance, which is not only ridiculous, but is the reason why there is so much outrage over every other issue this game has. If you know anything about Cyberpunk, you know it's a buggy mess. I love Cyberpunk, but I'm not going to deny that the game is insanely buggy. And this is the question everyone is asking. If it took over 8 years for Cyberpunk to be made, why the hell is it so buggy? Like I said earlier, CD Projekt Red pushed Cyberpunk to the side for a while due to the development of The Witcher 3. But The Witcher 3 came out on May 18th, 2015, meaning that there was a 5-year gap between The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk. You'd honestly expect this game to be completely polished with nearly no bugs. Cyberpunk was delayed many times, and each time it was delayed, there was an outrage from everyone. CDPR even wanted to delay it again to polish it, but everyone was so eager for them just to release it already that they basically had no choice. Delaying it once again would have just pissed people off even more. I personally think it should have been delayed again. Maybe it wouldn't have been as buggy as it was on launch. Now this is supposed to be a game review, so let's get to my opinions in the actual review, shall we? To put it simply, I like Cyberpunk. If you recall from my previous video, I called it my second most favorite video game ever, and said that it was the best story I have ever played in a video game. I didn't go into a whole lot of detail on that ranking, and nor did I on any of the rankings. I thought I could just end up making reviews like this for most of the games on that list. Now, why do I like Cyberpunk so much? It's simple, the characters. My belief is that to make a good story, you need to have good characters. You could have an amazing setting for your story. Everything could be amazing about it, but if you have boring, bland, bad characters, your story is going to suck. Characters are what makes a story a story. You can't just have a setting and no characters. There's nothing to it then. There's no context. And so the reason why Cyberpunk has such an amazing story is because every single character you come across is so rich and all have great character development. A pretty good example is Jackie Wells. Jackie was essentially V's partner in doing gigs and jobs. If you've never played Cyberpunk before, V is you. You can customize your V before the game begins. You can choose their gender, how they look, etc. Jackie and V meet in different ways depending on your life path. In the Corpo life path, V and Jackie already know each other before the game even begins. In the Street Kid path, which is the life path I did in my first playthrough, Jackie and V meet in a job gone wrong. In the mission The Heist, which is within the first few missions, you and Jackie are assigned to steal the relic from Arasaka. The relic is what has Johnny Silverhand's engram on it, and is pretty much what causes the rest of the game. Jackie dies at the end of the mission, only being in a few missions before this. So you might be thinking, why the hell would we care about Jackie's death? He died too early on for us to genuinely care about him as a character. He had barely any time to get any character development. But the way Jackie's character is developed is honestly pretty interesting. Jackie gets character development after his death. At one point in the game, Mama Wells, Jackie's mother, will call you randomly and ask to speak to you. She invites you to Jackie's funeral. This is entirely optional. Jackie's funeral is a side mission. I didn't do it in my first playthrough as I just wanted to focus on main missions for my first time. On my second playthrough, however, I took more time to complete the game and did more side missions, Jackie's funeral being one of them. And honestly, going to his funeral is pretty heartbreaking. A lot of the other major characters you've met throughout the game, like Victor and Misty, are at his funeral. At one point, multiple people Jackie was close with, including Victor, do a little speech about the good times they've had with Jackie. You realize how many people actually cared for Jackie, even though you yourself didn't have a whole lot of time to care about him. There are many other characters in Cyberpunk that make the story so rich, the 4 romances being a few of them. The 4 romances are Panam, Judy, River, and Carrie. Each of them requires specific gender to romance. Romancing a character pretty much means that you do all their side quests and you start a relationship with that character. All 4 of these have very rich and good side quest storylines, but the one that stands out the most to me is Judy's. Judy opens up about her past a lot in the side quests, and overall it just feels like Judy's side quests were developed a lot more than the other 3, almost as if Judy's romance is the only canon one. The last thing I wanted to talk about in this review is the endings to Cyberpunk. There are 6 endings, 2 of which are immediately available to you. You needed to do extra side quests to get the other 4. Now I want to start off by saying there are no happy endings in Cyberpunk. A couple of them may present themselves as happy, but there's always going to be something bad about them. One of the endings that is immediately available is the suicide ending. To sum it up, you pretty much give up, V is out of ideas and would rather just end their life right there instead of letting Johnny slowly eat away at their mind. The second ending that is immediately available to you is acquiring the help of Arasaka, and in my opinion, this is the darkest ending out of all of them, even darker than the suicide ending. When choosing the Arasaka ending, you are taking Arasaka's deal of letting them take Johnny's engram out of your head. They successfully do so, but it's already too late. Johnny's engram has already damaged you far too much. Johnny may no longer be with you, but you're still set to die in a few months. After this, Arasaka confronts you with a contract for their Save Your Soul program. If you sign the contract, they will extract your soul out of your body and store it until the technology is available to save your life, as it's not at the moment. If you refuse the contract, you're allowed to go home to live out your remaining few months alive. If you sign the contract, your soul is extracted out of you. Now, in my opinion, the ending where you sign the contract is the darkest ending. Not only are you killing yourself, but you're letting Arasaka, your biggest enemy, win. This ending really hit hard for me when I replayed the final mission multiple times to get all the endings. Something about this ending just seems so dark and disturbing because V is dead and Arasaka won. Something about it just is so unsettling and overall made me feel the most empty when I completed the story. Overall, Cyberpunk is an amazing game. I can't include everything about this game in this one review because this video would be like over an hour long or something, which I really don't want it to be. I know this video was kind of short, but this was my first review. I'm going to plan on doing other videos for other games like this in the future. This was just the first one. But in conclusion, if I had to rate Cyberpunk, I would give it a 9.5 out of 10 for having an absolutely amazing story, but the time it took to make and the bugs brought it down a little. Well, that's my first game review. If you want to see more stuff like this, please let me know. I'd be happy to make more content like this. I really enjoyed making this video. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in another video. See you guys.